It's hard not to notice the hysteria that exists around the growing trend of gender-swapping characters. Think about the sheer bile directed towards the Ghostbusters remake, or those unironically declaring the death of Doctor Who because Jodie Whittaker was cast in the lead role. This reaction is often put down purely to misogyny, however that is a gross oversimplification. Yes, misogyny might well play a part, but there is actually a deeper root to all of this. One of the early criticisms G4 of My Little Pony garnered back in the day was its lack of male cast members, both in lead and supporting roles. Even when they do appear, they tend to be negative portrayals like Prince Blueblood. So where are the positive role models for young boys, some would ask? The answer is, of course, they are right here. You see, this line of reasoning quickly falls apart under any rational scrutiny. It's similar to the logic former Doctor Who star Peter Davison used with his skepticism over the latest casting of the role, that the Doctor serves as a male role model specifically boys can look up to. You'll notice in my recent video sharing excitement over the new Doctor Who series I made no reference to the gender swap, and the reason is if the show clearly doesn't think it is significant, then why should I treat it as such? There were about 2 brief references to the Doctor being female in the first episode and that was it, which is exactly the right way to handle it. What's great about the Doctor being an alien is it allows for the deconstruction of abstract social structures and conventions from human society, and one of those is gender. After all, gender is largely an arbitrary social construction. Think back to Simone de Beauvoir's immortal quote, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." The trouble is, a lot of people tend to forget that, or rather centuries have been programmed by society to think of gender as such a huge cultural signifier has made it difficult to see beyond that, and realise that fundamentally speaking, severed from the fabrications of masculinity and femininity, one's biological gender makes about as much difference as colour of hair. Instead, there is a kind of us and them mentality that exists culturally between men and women, where the genders are socially segregated from one another, viewing the other solely as potential romantic or sexual conquests. Think of the typical media image of a group of lads eyeing up a girl in a bar or vice versa. The fact that the word friend-zoned unironically exists is a travesty, and the worst thing about it is it leads us to form unhealthy relationships, like where a girl has to talk to their girly mates about how to respond to something their partner has said or done, rather than actually address a problem with the person who's supposed to be their closest friend, when transparent communication is key to any successful relationship. Yes, I'm talking from experience, as I've been on the receiving end of this kind of crap myself in the past. Non-heterosexual relationships, by their very nature, tend to bypass a lot of this nonsense, which incidentally is also part of the reason why they have it so hard. They transgress the very unwritten social conventions we take for granted, toxic as they may be. The same goes for non-binaries, who in a society where gender is considered so essential to our being, don't fit neatly into any box whatsoever. With all of this considered, it's really no surprise that swapping the gender of a fictional character triggers so much backlash. But it shouldn't. In fact, it shouldn't trigger anything. It should be an incidental footnote and that is all. And to those celebrating and making a big deal out of it the other way, you're not helping either. It only further reinforces the idea of women as a severed and disparate entity from men, which is currently one of the biggest obstacles to true gender equality. It's why the patronising girl power messages of the 90s were about as far away from the true aims of feminism as you can get. Any social equality movement should focus on solidarity over segregation. When it comes to women, ethnic minorities, LGBT or any demographic underrepresented in media, the most progressive way to portray them is as ordinary, functioning adults, no different from anyone else. After all, that is what they are. Friendship is Magic is great because despite having an almost entirely female main cast, there is no championing of being female or femininity. Indeed, there are a wide variety of role models, both masculine and feminine and everything in between, who anyone can relate to. If young boys out there are watching MLP and realise that girls are not some alien species, that in fact we are all just people with our unique personalities, then that accomplishes 100 times more for equality than any girl power slogan ever will. I'm Midnight and I just lost my train of thought.